Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Platform Analytics Academy. Thank you to everyone that has joined. We have another great one on tap today. So real quickly, I just want to go through a couple logistical things. If you've been here before, you probably heard it, but if you have not, just listen in definitely because certain things may affect you. So the first thing I want to do is help you understand that what we do here is for you. So we try to bring fresh ideas and better understanding and practical guidance to everything that we can inside of platform analytics, inside of ServiceNow itself. So hopefully you'll get something out of this and any of the previous ones that we have as well. This is being recorded for a few reasons. One, we're going to definitely put it out in the community attached to this event. And then we're also going to have it out on YouTube on a couple of the YouTube channels that we have. If recording is an issue with your company, then you may want to go ahead and drop now because this definitely will be recorded. And we will have Q&A, so please use the Q&A box within Zoom if you can for all questions. Try not to put them in chat. We do have a couple people that are on. Dan Kane, who is also on my team, he'll be here to answer questions along with myself while the presentation is going. If they are questions that we can answer during the presentation, we will do that. If they are relevant to where the presenter is at, we will stop the presenter and ask him that question there. If they're unrelated to the topic, because you're allowed to ask those types of questions as well, we'll get to those or get to as many of those as we can towards the end of the session. So again, my name is Thomas Davis, and I'm an outbound product manager on the platform analytics team. And today our presenter is Abnaba, and I hope that I didn't mess that up, but he is a senior product manager with our ITSM BU team. So he is going to bring us great information about benchmarks and the power of them. We have had quite a few questions in the community for a while around benchmarks, and we have done our best along with other community members to answer those questions. So this is going to be a great resource that we'll have going forward to give us great information about benchmarks. So it is an intro into them. We may later on actually do a deeper dive. We have talked about that, Abnaba and I, so look for that as well. But for now, we'll just do an intro into benchmarks. So Abnaba, if you want to take over, you can start sharing.
Thank you, Thomas. And hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And welcome to a session, an introductory session on benchmarks. So I would quickly introduce ourselves. Me and Muthu over here are part of ITSM benchmark team. And we both would go over a few capabilities that you would see with benchmark and run through a demo and try to answer any questions that you have. So in today's session, we would cover the following agenda items that would give us an insight into what is benchmark and how you can use it at your organization. So now a brief background of the product. So for any organization, when we try to bring about any change to the business process or the product itself, we generally bank on the insights that we can extract from all the data that are handy to us. Also, while the IT leaders and process owners analyze and evaluate their stance using the organization-specific metric, we also saw them looking for data points on A, how is their organization doing in comparison to others? And B, what are some recommended ways that they can bring in the change that they want at their organization? And with benchmark, you get both the capabilities and in fact, much more. So let's quickly go through a few of the product attributes and how can you benefit from benchmark as a product. So first of all, you can opt into benchmark with just a single click. It's an easy opt-in process that we have. We have multiple KPIs under ITSM, ITOM, and SecOps. And in fact, you can choose which KPIs would you like to participate in and get the benchmark scores for. Now, we generally tend to associate benchmark as a prescriptive system, but benchmark also lets you to customize and configure the KPIs you opted in for. And that would depending upon your business process and usage at your organization. Now, once all these are set in the background, you are all ready to compare your organization's performance against your peers. Now, you can compare either based on industry segments. We have few industry segments that we already associate each accounts to. We have you can compare against the region of your operations, and lastly, you can also compare yourself to the organization of the similar size. Now, finally, as we were talking about what are the ways that the organization can bring in the change, actually, you can drive continual service excellence by utilizing and implementing the improvement recommendations that we have as part of benchmark. Now, here are a few snapshots of our dashboard and the recommendation details that we have on our product. So for our next section, we'll quickly go into a demo. So to start with, let me tell you one thing on for which all customers would benchmark be available to. So any customers with an ITSM and ITOM subscription would have benchmarks available to them. And it is available with standard SKU. Now, once you go into the opt-in process, you would be just given a few backgrounds on what kind of data would be captured, what kind of data utilization would be there. And once you read through this opt-in agreement, you can choose to opt in for the product itself. Now, once you check this, you can opt into the product and you are all set. So now, once you opt into the product itself, now the next steps would be to start using the benchmark application itself. But before you use it, there are a few jobs that generally helps us in collecting the data day over day. And so, for example, we have benchmark data collection, which actually collects the data points for each and every KPIs on a daily basis. And this would be for the sections like ITSM and SecOp KPIs. We have a specific job for ITOM related KPIs. Now, along with this, we know that once you start using it, you would like to see what your historical data look like as well, right? So we have an on-demand job that you can run once you opt in for the product. And you can, we have a lead time of 6 months that this collection jobs collect the data from, and you can choose to execute this particular job. Now, what it does is once you hit on execute, it will try and go in and look at all the KPIs that are active and would start collecting data for you. So this is pretty much it for you to get started and started with benchmark and start leveraging the dashboard itself. Now over here, for example, we have the different sections that you can compare your KPIs against. And you would have few details like for which month is it, is the data for, which industry do you belong? And then we have the subsections in each of these BUs. For example, for ITSM, we have incident, problem, change, and request. Now, you can compare yourself on the basis of industry, the number of users base, and of course, the region that we saw. With this dashboard, you'd also be able to download the report into a PDF format so that it's easily shareable across your org. Now, there are two types of scores that you would be seeing. The ones in green are where you are above the benchmark scores, but the ones in red is where the improvement needs to happen. Now, this is a score for a particular month, but what you can do is you can click on the card and you would be shown the details on how you are performing month over month on the as compared to the benchmark scores. So you would be able to see your scores as well as the percentile rank. Now, this is a KPI where an improvement is needed. So we provide few recommendations that we have out of box, which you can track and you can get started with the implementation. If you are using continual improvement management system from ITSM, you can track it end to end from benchmark to CIM as an application, or you can take this recommendation out of ServiceNow realm and track it manually as well. Now, the other part that we have here is related to the definition of the KPI. Now, this just gives a high level info on what the KPI looks like and what is the formula in the background that gets considered for this particular KPI.
Hey, so a question came in and it said, can the trends be filtered by assignment group out of the box, or will we have to modify it so it can be?
So currently we do not have, so assignment group and the service providers at a particular organization can be different from one org to another. So what we have is a cumulative level at an org strata level. So let's say if you want to utilize PA at your company to have a granular split of these or slicing of these data points, you can do it at your end, but the comparison would be happening at the prescriptive level, which is at the org level itself. Does that answer the question? Or
yeah, I mean, if Andrea has more questions, she'll type back in. Yes, she said yes, it does. Thanks for that. And then one other one real quick before we move on. Has Benchmarks always been an opt-in for customers?
It has been, yes.
Okay, good. Here's another one. How can organizations remain anonymous but still benefit from the offerings of Benchmarks? And I'm guessing being anonymous with other companies, since you're sharing that data.
So one of the items that we would be covering in later stages is the data points or the data that we capture is always anonymized and is always at an aggregate level. So whatever data we capture from company A is not available or would not be able to be seen by any of the other customers who have opted in. And secondly, while we are on this particular point, we also do not capture any personal identifiable information or even customer identifiable information.
Okay, great. There is another question that came in, but I think that you actually may get to some of this in your demo. So I'll let you go ahead and go forward.
So next, we'll quickly go over the KPIs that are part of benchmark as of today. And this is an information that you would also be able to find in our doc site that is available for the product. So for ITSM, we have 20 KPIs and they are split in their respective areas of incident, problem, change, service catalog, knowledge base, and there are a few other KPIs like CSAT scores and number of requests per fulfiller, which we have considered as others category. Now, along with this, we also have 9 more KPIs related to CI health and vulnerable items that you can leverage and opt in for ITOM and SecOps area. Now, for the next part of our session, we'll quickly go through a quick demo on how you can opt into a particular KPI, customize it depending upon your need and things like that. So once you opted in for the product, right, you can come to the same setup section of the benchmarks. And now what you would see, instead of a product opt-in, you would get the list of KPIs that are available. Now, these are all the KPIs that are available out of box, and you can choose whether you would like to participate or not, and by toggling it on and off. You can toggle it on or off and save the details. Now, apart from this, you would also have a capability to configure these KPIs. Now, one of the KPI that we would look at is percentage of high priority incidents, right? So let's say you want to participate in this KPI, and now this KPI is internally built of 2 contributing indicators. One is number of high priority incidents and number of incidents resolved. Now, we know that the maybe number of incidents resolved would be same for all across all our customer base, but high priority incidents brings in that subjectiveness, right? That a particular organization might have a different definition as against the other. So over here, out of the box, we have said that priority is less than or is critical. Now, let's say at your organization, the high priority item is any incident with a lower priority than what is high. So you can come over here, choose that particular condition, select that and say update. Now, once you update it, this KPI is now reflected or would be updated as per what your definition is, right? So once this is saved, you are set from a KPI perspective. Now, another thing to take care of why we customize it. So we looked at the historical data collection job. So once you have updated your system, we would recommend you to execute or run this again so that the KPIs now are reflected depending upon the changed condition. Now, after doing all this stuff, like opting in for the product, setting up your KPIs, participating for the KPIs, you are all done. So once you are done from a setup aspect, what we do is we will try each month, we will collect this data. We'll collect all the KPI information from each of our customers. We will run, we will try to exclude any outliers in the system, and we will come up or we will arrive at a benchmark scores. Now, this benchmark scores would then be published back to each of you who have opted in. So on a high level, this is how an end-to-end setup for benchmark looks like and things that you would be able to do with benchmark as a product. So Thomas, are there any questions before we move on?
Some have been answered while you've been going on. There was one, and I know that you had mentioned it was going to be in there. There was someone that asked it, how many customers actually participate in benchmarks, but you may be getting to that, and that's what I told them. So for now, I think we're good. Well, let me see here. Another one came in. So let's see. If we update the condition of our KPI collection, how do we? Wait a minute. This may not be related. Let's see. Yeah, just to how many customers have signed up for benchmarks.
So currently we have around 2,650 customers amongst 10 industry categories that ServiceNow supports.
Okay, great. Yeah, and you can keep going. Thank you. So now, as one of our last segments for this session, let's quickly take a look at a few of the frequently asked questions that we get from our customer base. So these questions might have been covered during our presentations, but can act as a good summarization at the end of it, right? So the first question that we generally get to see is how does benchmark works and how to get started with benchmark. So just like we saw in the demo, there are 5 major steps that you need to take. The first one being opting into the product. Second, choose the KPIs that you would like to participate in. Third, customize those KPIs if needed. Activate the jobs, and of course, run the historical data collection job at the end. Now, few of the other questions that we get is around how and what data are pulled from the instance. And as we covered in one of the questions, it's only anonymized and aggregated data that we collect. And none of the PIIs or CIIs are ever captured for benchmarking perspective. And now once this data is collected, we generally push or publish the benchmark scores month over month on 11th of each month. So let's say for the month of January, the benchmark scores would be published on 11th of February, which is in next 2 days. So moving on. So one of this particular product being data heavy,
we get a lot of questions around what is the security aspects that we have considered while building this product. So in the background, we use REST APIs with authentication methods to create a secured communication channel between your instance and the central instance. Now, what is the central instance that I'm referring to? So this is the place where we actually store the data that we collect. And this is the instance where we calculate or do the calculation, the background calculation of arriving at the benchmark scores before we publish it out. Now, one of the other concerns that we have frequently heard is, now we are sharing data around what our metrics look like. So who all from ServiceNow can view the benchmark scores? So we only have very limited access and authorized users only who can look at this data. Now, the data that they're looking, let me guarantee it. Again, as it's anonymized, we won't be able to, we would not be able to get information apart from what your score is, and that's it. So before we move on, if there are any questions, Thomas, we can take them up.
Yeah, there's a couple that came in. So there was one, and I actually thought it was related to something else, but it's not. So the question is, if we update the conditions of our KPI or benchmarks, how do we make sure that we are not, quote unquote, cooking the books? That is, how do we make sure we're still collecting data that is comparable to our peers? Is there a best practice and intent guidance? Just making sure that what we're actually collecting and the way that we're collecting is comparable to the other customers that are doing the same thing. Is there guidance around that?
That's a very good question, in fact. So as I was referring earlier, benchmark is a prescriptive kind of application. Now, whichever KPIs we ship out of the box, we provide few guidelines or best practices on what is intended out of those KPI. Now, the example that we took was specifically around high priority incidents. Now, if you think for you, a P3 or P2 is also a high priority, that level of configurability and that level of customization is with you. But the prescription would be that you choose only the related high priority incidents only. And we have similar kinds of KPIs around vulnerable items, CI items, things like that. So the prescriptiveness comes up across by the information that we provide with each KPIs that is shipped out of the box. Hope that answers.
Okay, great. Yeah, Patrick can tell us if that does answer. So a couple of other ones that are related to one another. So hello, we do not use ITSM. We use only the HR module. Are we able to utilize benchmarking for HR, ER modules? And also, very similar, someone asked, is there benchmarks for vulnerability response modules?
So we have, so let's take the HR part first. So integrating with HR for benchmarking is in our roadmap. I would not be able to comment on the specific timelines, but we are looking to expand our list of KPIs and expand the offerings to other BUs as well. Now, for vulnerable items, item response KPIs, we have only few around the SecOps ones. Let me just show you again. So we have these around them. Now, if these are not the ones that you're looking for, you can definitely reach out to us from benchmark teams and let us know which all are the other KPIs that you want to get added as part of our out-of-box KPI list.
Okay, great. Another one is, would it be possible to generate a set of annual benchmarks? I use the benchmarks as targets on my reports. I only change the target annually, so a 2021 average would be better than December. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. So one of our items that we might be looking up or looking at in future releases is how we can generate quarterly, quarter over quarter or year over year reports on the end-to-end benchmark scores that we received over, let's say, the last fiscal year or things like that. But right now it's only month over month. But we definitely have that as a idea that we are working towards.
Okay, great. And then can physical year be customized?
As in the demo, while we were seeing the dashboard, whether you would be able to choose any other month? Is that the question?
We might, maybe they can respond to better help explain that. Our fiscal years from June to May is what he's saying. He or she is saying. Can that be changed?
Yeah. So right now, as it's month over month, fiscal year consideration is not in place, but that's a very valid point. And why we are defining our quarter over quarter versus year over year parameters, we will definitely keep that in mind. That's a very valid and a very good consideration that you brought up.
Okay. And I'm Rolly, if I'm saying that correct, and if I'm not, I apologize. That's probably a good one for the Ideal portal. So if you go to the Ideal portal in the community and look and see if one is already there, or if not, create one, it will definitely get traction then. So good question.
And as a process, we always take a look at Idea portal, the community ideas that is generated, and we take it back as a feedback for us to implement. So while you take this session back with you, you can definitely leverage Idea portal to provide any feedback you have.
Great, always, yeah. And then one last follow-up on that, and it says also anything on IRM or GRC?
Right now, the first three BUs that we wanted to integrate with is ITBM, CSM, and HR. But definitely, we want to integrate with as many product offerings that we have from ServiceNow, and so that then this particular product acts as a source of truth from benchmark aspects. Okay,
great. And then, what has been the highest take up for benchmarking industry-wise? And I'm guessing that's meaning which one is used most often? What are companies looking at to correlate between one another?
So if it's related to which KPIs are mostly used, because as I said, we have 2,600 odd customers who have opted in for the product, but few of the KPIs resonates more with them. And for example, the MTTR, which is mean time to resolve or repair, because that's directly impacting the service quality at a customer's organization, right? So something on the sides of MTTR, some few things around what's the percentage of high priority items. That also has a lot of traction from all our customer base. And apart from it, we also see them referring what the requester per fulfiller KPI that we have, because that gives an indication on what other customers are investing in from an automation versus manual handling perspective versus what that particular customer is. Hope that answers, or that was in alignment to the question that was asked.
Yeah, and it says they're thinking like industry-wise, e.g., example, outsourcing, et cetera. Like, I guess, do you know from an industry standpoint the ones that, and maybe the MTTR is the one that is, but just from an industry standpoint, are there ones that are more heavily used between customers than others? And it sounds like you're saying that MTTR is, but and this one has no name, so anonymous. That's what anonymous is asking.
Okay, so what I just talked about is from overall perspective, but what we can do is we can take this back as something to run a crunch the numbers on, let's say, for each of the industry segments, which one makes more sense. And definitely that's a good way to validate, okay, which are the KPIs that we should be looking at, because these are the companies which are comparable to me and or is similar to me, and they are looking at these KPIs. So definitely we can take this back, and I can try to have these numbers up with Thomas maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks down the line.
Yeah, and when you have those, then we can definitely attach them to the event. We can put them directly into the event, so it'll be there. So great. So a couple others came in. So is there a plan to allow customers to create custom benchmarks? Meaning, could we build a benchmark off of an out-of-box formula? As an example, we may have multiple types of CSAT surveys and want to have a benchmark KPI for each individual survey. We would use the out-of-the-box parts to build the formula, but configure each to calculate per each survey. So basically, is it in the pipeline to allow customers to create or customize what's out there?
Um, okay, so right now, to be very honest, we don't have something like that in the plans, just for one reason, because let's say that's a capability of creating your own formula indicators and PA indicators. Now we would need to normalize it against all the customers who have opted in for benchmarks. Now, to identify the similarity between multiple KPIs would become difficult for us to create that benchmark scores. So right now we are not envisioning it in near future, and but definitely if you can put that idea on our idea portal, we have it tracked so that we get back to you with better response and better more data points around what is going to happen and what's not.
Okay. And Susan, if we missed a mark on what you were asking, please just type back in. Maybe to clear it up if we missed a mark on that. But yeah, good. So another one came in. Percentage of high priority incidents uses P1, P2. Average time uses P0, P1. Very different impact on results. So I don't know if that's a question or an explanation of something. Anava, you want to go at that? Maybe Ed needs to give a better explanation of what he's asking here.
Okay. So okay, Ed, I guess if this is a finding that you see that there's a disparity between two of our KPIs, we can take this back as an input and we can look at these KPIs. Yeah, because ideally, what we call as high priority incidents in one KPI should be the same as what we call it for the next or the other.
Okay, yeah, and he's saying it's a follow-up to an earlier question about the definitions of two benchmarks about high priority. Yeah, and I believe that.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like he's answering it. Okay, good. All right. Let's see. So Stephen, what Stephen got here? So, yeah, you know what? We could do that, Dan. That's a good point. Let's take Ed off of mute and let him ask just to make sure that we can get him answered correctly. Where is he at? I think he was by last name. There he is. Okay. Hey, Ed, go ahead. Why don't you ask out loud so we can get a better understanding?
Oh, thanks. This is a question I've been asking for a long time, and I never seem to be able to get an answer. That's one of the reasons I'm here today. If you just open there's two benchmarks about high priority incidents. The first one is percent of high priority incidents. If you open it up and you look at the definition states that it's on P1 and P2 incidents. And then underneath that is the average time to resolve a high priority incident. And if you open up and look at that definition, it says this is on P1s and P0 incidents. And it doesn't make sense that the two things talking about high priority incidents define high priority incidents differently. I hope that helps.
Yes, Ed, that definitely helps. And I guess there might be some mess at our end which we can take a look at, because ideally, as I was explaining, the high priority definition of high priority incidents would remain same across any of the KPIs that is leveraging that. Agreed on that particular point, Ed.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your question, Ed, or at least gives Avnavas some guidance on maybe something to look at?
Yeah, I'd just like you to look at the two definitions and understand, they should be the same. A high priority incident on the percent of high priority incidents should be the same as how long it's taking to resolve those incidents. It shouldn't be two different should not be two different definitions of high priority.
Correct. And we'll take this back, Ed, and we will try to analyze the situation. Hope that's okay.
Okay.
All right.
Ed, thank you for bringing that up.
We had another one that come in that said, do you have any good success stories of implementing benchmarking? Any good customer success stories? Sorry.
I can't think of it right at the top of the mind, but we have seen few comments on from our customer side saying, yeah, if we can leverage benchmark, this would be a game changer for them to identify the opportunities and implement it. But I know those are some generic comments that we have seen, and I would try and see if we can share that document out with there's a one slide that we have on what our customers are saying about benchmarks. So hopefully that would help you help you gauge.
Yeah, and not to put Dan or Tara on blast, but I know that you've had extensive conversations with customers about many things. Are there any examples that either one of you could share?
Are you talking in reference to how they leverage benchmarks?
Yeah, just using it. I mean, just talking to a customer about it and them starting to use it, just things like that. If you have any direct stories to it.
I can say honestly, rarely get much feedback after the fact, but I do have everybody excited to join and asking how to make sure that they are part of that. And I don't get much feedback after that, so I'm assuming that's good, right? Because once they get on board, they're excited about being part of all of that and measuring things compared to each other. I know for a while there we had some this was when it first came out, some requests to put the benchmark side by side on a dashboard with their own, instead of going out to the benchmark, you know what I mean, by itself.
Yeah.
Kind of pulling it onto their dashboard. And I think we, provided some solutions for that. But I mean, I really rarely get any feedback, which means that I think it just, they're excited, they join, and then I don't hear anything else after that. Like, oh, this isn't working, or this isn't what I wanted. It's usually like click and go.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Tara.
Pretty similar, just that it's just that, yeah, just kind of anecdotally that the ones that I have talked to about it definitely enjoy it, but it's nothing that I would have like any kind of written up, any kind of written up studies or anything like that. But I'm sure our marketing folks would have some things, but nothing that's any kind of that any customer would be formalized on.
Okay. And then Mark, your follow-up would be good to track opportunities and outcomes once an organization has implemented. It's good to hear this on this call, and we definitely will take notice of what you're asking about. And even on Omnivaz's team with them being the product managers on it, it's something good to take back to make sure that. And I think that he was even talking about that he has some information about customers that are using it and the things that they're saying about it. So. Yeah, good point, Mark. Thank you.
Good feedback in the chat too from Joe. Thank you. So I already have at least one. At least
there
one.
We go. Maybe we should just unmute Joe.
Yes.
I won't put you on blast like that, Joe. But thanks for the feedback. Yeah. So Stephen has a question. In some ways, this is very reminiscent of the KPI library project from 2014. Are there any plans to allow customers to crowdsource, upvote, share benchmarks? By the way, and this is a caveat, does ServiceNow still support KPI library? But yeah, is there any talks about crowdsourcing, upvoting, and sharing benchmarks across customers, Anubhav?
Not across customers. We don't have that yet. And on the second question, whether ServiceNow still support KPI library, I might need to take that back, Stephen, so that we can get an answer to you on it.
Oh, my understanding is no, we do not.
Okay, good. Okay, let me take sharing back over here real quick. I just hope that I'm not messing your name up that bad.
Yeah, it's
told it to me yesterday, but I've probably messed it up. But let's see. Away from slide. There we go. All right, let me share my screen back here. Let's see, we got another one here. Okay, this is not directly related to, well, you know, you have your useful resource, so they can look at that while we talk about this, this question here. So on data collection jobs, we're starting to get the error, fetch too many rows from indicator source. Is there a downside to increasing the mass records value to a high value like 30 million? The intragate, man, I can't talk today. Jobs continually pull in new records into the module and expect to get up to 20 plus million records. So one, I guess I would say, and Tara and Dan, please chime in here. How often are you running this job? How often is the data that it's pulling in getting updated? And have you done pretty much everything that you can from a filtering perspective to limit how much is coming into that? And I think for me, just thinking of that many records, my question is, how often are you doing it? Dan, Tara, I don't know if you want to add anything to that. I mean, that's
do you
not
have
like,
date?
I mean, that doesn't push the envelope. I mean, that's a lot of records, but I mean, I hope you're not doing that like,
I
every
would
5
ask.
minutes.
Yeah, I would ask that the frequency, and do you have date ranges on your jobs? Because if you don't, that's where you're going to hit that, right? Are you making sure that, because generally, I mean, you can run the jobs and it can parse through it, no problem, as long as it's, you know, looking for specific records based off of date ranges. So if you have it open-ended, so your queries aren't being stopped with any sort of date range, then that's where that's usually where I see that. Also, if you have breakdowns that are more than probably you could actually look through, that's usually when I'll see that as well. Do you have anything to add to that, Dan? That's usually when I've seen that.
Yeah.
I guess kind of a follow-up question to that is, are you talking about like vulnerability response? Are you talking about like the vulnerability items? Because that's the one area that I'm aware of that you could see consistently in the, you know, in the tens of millions on a daily basis, potentially.
Yeah, that's what he's
of
talking about.
active
He answered
records.
yes. They answered yes.
Yes. Okay. So where one of the nice things about that, I can't remember when it started, but I think it was exactly where it started. What I would recommend is not changing the system property, the overall the PA system property to increase the maximum number of allowable, but you can on the individual indicator source do an override of just that one particular indicator source to say that I want to allow that one indicator source. So, but generally, yes, you do not want to go for that large of a data set for PA, but there are some individual scenarios where you really don't have any choice. Vulnerability items generally is the one where it can, but there are definitely some other things, other considerations to do with that. For example, one thing I would do is make sure that you're not collecting records. So, for example, when you get to the actual, on the indicator source, you do the override, but on the collect records, make sure on the indicator itself, make sure you deselect the collect records option. So, because that can collect the individual records can really slow down and can potentially even max out the memory on a node during the collection process. So that's one thing. It's not uncommon for a vulnerability job to take, oh boy, it could take an hour or two on a daily basis. It's where they start to take like 10 hours or more, on a daily collection. That's where I would really start to get concerned. So I guess what I would say is, just that basic scenario, and then also look for breakdowns. And do you have where do you have a lot of breakdowns? So do you have more than just 3 or 4 or 5 breakdowns for those indicators? Or try to minimize the number of breakdowns, and even then within the breakdowns, the combinations of breakdown. So, when you have the option to look at the breakdown matrix exclusions, are there places where you can do breakdown matrix exclusions? So those are a couple of things to look at. So there's not a black and white answer, but so what Thomas and Tara said for all other indicators absolutely is true. For vulnerable items, that is definitely the one area that there is the big caveat to it, that you'll definitely need to ramp up the number of records that you are allowed to collect.
Okay, great, Dan. And there was another question that came in that is unrelated, but is there any out-of-the-box PA content available for WSD? I can't see any on the available analytics and reporting solutions page. Dan, Tara, have you seen any or heard about any?
Yeah, I have to.
I'm sorry, I missed the question.
Are there any out-of-the-box
Okay,
PA
for
content
WS
available for WSD?
What's WSD?
Yeah, that's
I have to claim ignorance on that.
To you too, if you knew.
You tell me what it is, I can tell you. There's
Yeah, that's
Pierre,
right.
could you?
What is WSD, Pierre?
So that is workplace service delivery.
Okay, there you go.
ServiceNow product offering that we have.
Workplace service delivery.
Sometimes they are hidden within other solutions. Yeah, you're gonna look there too. Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to answer that without checking. So give me a second.
Yeah, Pierre, we'll check on that shortly here. Our sources, see if we can find something. While she's checking this out, let's see if we can answer Ben's. And while you talked about this a little bit, well, you're just going to type it. Why don't you just go ahead and just you can say it out loud. It's fine.
So Ben, we do have HR in our roadmap, but maybe an year down the line. Right now, we are working towards Tokyo. So for Tokyo, it's not yet in slot. So that I can confirm. But for Utah and Vancouver, we'll let you know.
Okay, great. Did you find anything, Tara?
Yeah, it looks like there's quite a few different things going on. So I will just put a link in the chat.
Okay, that'll work. Awesome.
To take you directly there.
Yep. So if you want to talk about the useful resources that you have here, we can kind of keep moving forward.
Sure, Thomas. So lastly, whatever we have covered till now, right? So we have few useful resources out here which you can look at to understand more, deep dive into benchmark as a product. You can have the FAQs that we have listed. There are a few more that you can go through to see if those are the queries that you also have. And just like we did a small demo today, we also have a few short 7 to 10 minutes videos on YouTube as well. So I've provided the link to all of those resources here, which you can use it at your disposal while you are trying out benchmark at your organization.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and take over here. Thank you very much. Great information. Like I said, I know that there's quite a few questions that come into the community around benchmarks, and being able to now have this source with what you presented and demoed, but also the questions. I think the questions were really great today. So I think that the answers that we've gotten today will really help other people out today. So I appreciate customers asking those great questions along with the great presentation and demo that we had today. So thank you for that. And we appreciate you coming. And like I said earlier, maybe a few months now, who knows how long, but I know that you and I were talking about doing some more in-depth type stuff in a demo. So we'll see if we can't get that on the calendar as well for everyone. But thank you for what you presented today, and I think it was great. So real quick, as we close, just always remember the Platform Analytics Academy community page. This recording will be out there on that event, and it'll be out there within the day or within today, before close of business today for me. It will be out there. So make sure you go there. And of course, it's always out on YouTube. Let me see if I can get that. There we go. And just, our community page as a whole, there's great information that's out there. The customers really make that as powerful, if not more, as we do. They aid in everything that's out there. So really good stuff there. So if you're just new to it anything within the platform analytics or reporting or whatnot, definitely check this source out because it's going to give you great information. And always there is great training inside of Now Learning. It does have a new look, which is awesome. But definitely go out there and just search for this example that you can see here. Just search analytics, and it's going to bring back all the great training that is out there. If you don't have an account, you should. Please utilize it as much as you can. Here are some other great Academy sessions that are out there: Platform Foundations, Mobile App Academy, and Virtual Agent. Check those out as you can. Those are ran really, really well, and great information is on that as well. So take advantage of those. Always show this. I know it gets redundant for some that are here all the time, but I think it's important for you to know how to write a good question inside of the community so it will get answered and get answered fast with really great information. So these are tips that you can look at as it relates to writing questions in the community. So check that out. The next time in 2 weeks, we're going to talk about conversational analytics dashboard. So this is actually going to be really new for me. So I myself am looking forward to this. So come back in 2 weeks on February 23rd, and you'll get this information. And Dan or Tara, I don't know if you have anything that you want to add here at the end, but if not, I appreciate everybody joining. And I want to, of course, for you presenting and demoing. So Dan, Tara, you got anything you want to share before we go?
Nope. Just goodbye, everyone.
Nope.
Thanks for taking care of this,
Thank
Thomas.
you.
Yep, no problem. All right, we'll see everybody in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Bye-bye.